Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain We Die Young. This movie tells the story of a 14-year-old boy determined to keep his younger brother from following his footsteps into gang life. They run from the ruthless drug lord and soon find help in a troubled war veteran. Will they find a better life outside the shadow of the mafia? Let's find out in We Die Young. We Die Young begins by showing a teenage boy named Lucas who tells how bleak life is in the neighborhood where he lives because of the frequent occurrence of various crimes, such as murder, rape, and drug trafficking. The crimes have greatly disturbed the people living in the neighborhood, not to mention the presence of the gangsters who control the area. Lucas himself actually works for one of the biggest gangsters in town as a drug dealer courier. Lucas understands the flow of drug trafficking in the city, starting from couriers like himself roaming the city, from one customer to another using his bicycle, to an intermediary who conducts a drug business between a large gang run by a man named Jester, who is none other than the right-hand man of the big boss. Lucas tells his customers that the big boss who leads the gang cannot be found by just anyone, so most people only communicate with Big Boss through Jester. However, unlike the rest of the gang, Lucas can easily meet the big boss, a man named Rinkin. It is known that Rinkin is a cruel gang leader and does not hesitate to kill anyone who dares to cause trouble with him. One time, Rinkin ordered his men to torture a man who was caught betraying him, and after that, he brutally killed him. As usual, Lucas was pedaling his bicycle around the area delivering drug packages to people who had ordered from Rinkin. He then meets a regular customer named Daniel. Daniel is not a drug addict. He bought Lucas drugs to relieve an acute depression that wouldn't go away. Daniel is a retired United States soldier who had been involved in the war in Afghanistan. This painful experience on the battlefield plunged Daniel so deeply that he had to use drugs to relieve his depression. Not only mentally affected, but he also had to lose his ability to communicate verbally. That's why he always spoken with Lucas via text written on his cell phone. Whenever Lucas delivers his order, Daniel always advises him to get out of the gangsters and live a normal life like teenagers in general, namely going to school and playing. But Lucas always seems to ignore Daniel's advice. The scene then switches and shows Rinkin peeking through the window and finding a car parked not far from his house. Rinkin assumed that the car belonged to the FBI agents who were on duty to spy on him. He then told his sister to get ready because she was getting married soon. After from Daniel's house, Lucas went to an old man named Carlos to collect payment for drugs that he bought some time ago. But Carlos said he was having a hard time because his fruit sales had been very quiet lately, so he asked for an extended payment deadline. Out of pity, Lucas then gave him a chance to pay the bill next week and asked the old man to pay it off immediately so that Rinkin wouldn't be angry with him. Meanwhile at Rinkin's place, a priest came to his house to talk about his sister's wedding blessing ceremony that would soon be held. The priest told Rinkin if the blessing of his sister's marriage must be held in the church to be more solemn, but Rinkin immediately rejected it outright, citing security reasons. The priest did not move and was forced to comply with Rinkin's wishes, forcing the wedding to occur at his house. On the other hand, Lucas, who visited the drug courier's base camp before handing over the deposit to Rinkin, looked surprised when he saw his little brother there. Excitedly, Lucas's brother said that he had joined Rinkin's gang and would become a drug courier like him. In contrast to his younger brother, who was very happy because he would eventually become a gangster member like his brother, Lucas actually looked very angry and scolded him. He then forced his brother to return to school. Elsewhere, Daniel, who was buying fast food at a food truck, angers some customers because his inability to speak makes the service slow, so they have to wait quite a while. Some gangsters couldn't wait for Daniel to order food, then bullet him completely. However, even though Daniel is a highly trained ex-soldier, he tries to temper his anger, deciding not to retaliate against his bullies. Daniel immediately left the place and headed to a quiet alley because suddenly his illness recurred. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the medicine he'd bought from Lucas to relieve his depression. However, some thugs saw Daniel using illegal drugs and tried to rob him. But then, Daniel, who could no longer contain his anger, beat the thugs to a pulp. Turning to another place, Rinkin seems to have prepared his sister's wedding quite perfectly. Even though he is known to be cruel and violent, Rinkin turns out to really love his sister and will always do the best for her. The groom-to-be then came to Rinkin with his family. They seemed tense knowing Rinkin's reputation as a gangster leader that everyone feared. When everyone at Rinkin's house looks busy preparing for the wedding, Lucas comes there to hand over the money for the drug sales payment to him. Unlike the other couriers, Lucas looks pretty familiar with Rinkin because he really likes Lucas, who he thinks is quite smart and reliable. Rinkin had even considered Lucas a member of his own family. It was revealed that Lucas's older brother turned out to be a former member of the Special Forces who unfortunately had to die while trying to save Lucas from drugs and gangsters. Rinkin then told Lucas that he loved all his family members, especially his sister, a person with a disability. Rinkin then gave Lucas an important task to deliver 2 large packages to someone waiting for him near the gas station. Rinkin stressed that Lucas had to finish his assignment as soon as possible so that he could attend his sister's wedding and have a great time at the party. Not long after, Jester barged in a while bringing a man who was often in arrears in front of Rinkin. Rinkin then warned the man to pay off his debt immediately, and at the same time Jester beat him to death. Rinkin then told Lucas to leave, and it was clear that Jester didn't like Lucas' presence at Rinkin's house. Jester then asked Rinkin why he had sent Lucas to deliver the very important package, which he thought that Rinkin should have sent him. Jester never really liked Lucas because Rinkin seemed to only pay special attention to Lucas. However, Rinkin reasoned that they were being watched by FBI agents, and he didn't want Jester to be caught by the FBI agents. Therefore, he sent Lucas because he would not arouse the suspicion of the FBI agents who were monitoring their movements not far away. Meanwhile, when he was about to deliver his package, Lucas saw his younger brother being beaten by gangsters, which was a ritual for anyone who wanted to join a gangster. Lucas then tried to stop the persecution by saying that Rinkin had ordered him to stop them. After that, Lucas rushed to bring his brother home and intended to take him to school, even though Lucas was forced to ignore his duties for a moment. However, Lucas accidentally dropped one of the packages upon arriving home and didn't notice it. When they were about to leave, Jester and his men came, intending to take Lucas to Rinkin's house and complain about his actions for deliberately ignoring Rinkin's orders. Jester and his henchmen then beat Lucas, but then Lucas managed to escape with his brother. While escaping, Lucas met Daniel who was driving his car. Daniel stopped the car and told them to get in and hide. However, Jester and his henchmen know this and then chase them on motorbikes. Chasing action on the narrow streets was unavoidable until Daniel managed to paralyze Jester and his henchmen in the end. Meanwhile, Rinkin was holding his sister's wedding party, which was simple but quite lively. Everyone looks happy. Turning back to Lucas, he accidentally dropped a package in Daniel's car which was now on fire. He finally realized that one of the packages was not in the bag and concluded that the package might have fallen while he was at his house. On the other hand, Jester immediately reported the incident to Rinkin, who seemed very angry and disappointed at Lucas. Rinkin then ordered Jester and all his men to capture Lucas and his brother alive. Meanwhile, Daniel suggested that Lucas immediately go out of town while there was a chance, but he seemed displeased with Daniel's idea and asked him not to interfere in his business. Lucas rushed home to pick up his package and intended to deliver it to complete the task given by Rinkin. Shortly after Jester left his room, Rinkin was approached by Spider, another gang leader who turned out to be the recipient of the package brought by Lucas. Spider asks Rinkin about the package whereabouts, which turns out to contain a lot of cash. Arriving home, Lucas rushed to find the dropped package and found it under the bed. He ran to pick it up and immediately left with his brother. But then, Lucas is framed by his friend who hands him over to Jester and his henchmen. Lucas was taken away by them to face Rinkin. Meanwhile, in another place, Daniel, who had returned home, was very surprised to find out that his father-in-law had been beaten up by Jester and his henchmen. Because Jester and the others had dared to hurt his family, Daniel decided to take revenge on them and save Lucas and his brother. Arriving at Rinkin's residence, Daniel confronted 2 of Rinkin's men. Daniel, who was almost defeated by the gangsters, recalled the painful events he experienced while in Afghanistan until finally he got up and managed to kill one of Rinkin's henchmen and take another man hostage. Knowing that FBI agents were monitoring Rinkin's residence, Daniel then provoked them to attack Rinkin's residence using the man he took as a hostage. Seeing this, the FBI agents immediately launched an attack on Rinkin's place, which turned out to be heavily guarded by armed gangsters. Gunfights are inevitable. Many casualties fell from the Rinkin and also the FBI. Sadly, Rinkin's sister was also killed in the attack, right on her wedding day, which should have been her happiest day. Daniel was shot in the leg, trying to save Lucas and his brother. Lucas tried to save himself in the chaos and took his brother with him, but Jester caught up with them and threatened them at gunpoint. But then Rinkin appears and prevents Jester from killing them. Rinkin said that he was very disappointed in Lucas, who had betrayed him, even though all this time, he had always thought of Lucas as his own brother. However, when Rinkin was about to kill Lucas, he couldn't bear doing it and ordered Lucas and his brother to leave. Seeing this, Jester was furious and thought Rinkin was a coward. Jester then expresses anger and jealousy towards Lucas, who is always cared for and treated well by Rinkin like family. Though Jester is Rinkin's nephew, Jester, who intends to seize Rinkin's power within their group, then kills Rinkin by shooting him in the head. When Jester was about to kill Lucas and his brother, Daniel came and tried to calm Jester by giving him a package containing a lot of cash. But after checking, it turns out that the package is not money. Feeling cheated, Jester wants to kill Daniel, but then, someone shoots and kills him. It turned out that this person was one of Lucas' friends who had trapped him. The film ends by showing Lucas and his brother going out of town by train. While on their way, Lucas's brother realized that there was a large pile of cash in his pocket, which Daniel had deliberately tucked away as provisions for them to start a new life in another city. The moral of this film is not to harbor envy and envy towards other people because it will only bring misery to yourself. In addition, avoid drugs, never get involved with drugs for any reason because it will only lead to suffering for ourselves and the people around us. It also avoids harmful environments and relationships because they will only plunge us into an endless pit of misery.